Welcome to The Beat. I'm Luke Russert in for Ari Melber. We are on the cusp of the nation's 250th birthday, and while it should be the most magnificent celebration of America in our history, it has become a sad punchline. We are left with an underwhelming, overly partisan county fair that no one is going to, and for a time couldn't even if they wanted. That fair was shut down today due to extreme heat. The Capitol looks like a demolition zone, from the murky reflecting pool to the crater where the east wing of the White House used to be. And tonight, Donald Trump is speaking at Mount Rushmore, a place he has mused about putting his own face next to some of America's greatest presidents. It is likely a preview of tomorrow night's festivities, when the national fireworks will have to wait until after Trump finishes another long, winding speech. Winding speech. It feels like we are being robbed of a unique moment of national unity by a president who cannot fathom a celebration that does not revolve around him. And it comes as we are learning more about the unprecedented extent to which Trump is enriching himself off his public position. A level of wealth the New York Times calls unimaginable for any leader of a liberal democracy, particularly a sitting American president. Frankly, it's almost Putin-esque. And it is not just him. New disclosures reveal that Vice President J.D. Vance and First Lady Melania Trump both took in millions more last year than the year before. We also just learned that Trump made 21,000 stock trades last year, including hundreds of stocks that he picked up on his Liberation Day. The day when tariffs sent markets into a tailspin. But guess what? The markets in the president's portfolio shot up in value days later, after he announced a pause in most of those tariffs and said, quote, "It's a great time to buy." A White House spokeswoman says neither the president nor his family has ever engaged or will ever engage in conflicts of interest. Yeah. What do other Republicans say about all these unprecedented corruption allegations? Well, not much. After each new revelation, those who were once concerned about Hunter Biden selling his paintings, they've remained awfully quiet. And now, the biggest celebration of America's founding, of the first time we stood up and said no king will rule us, is being hijacked by a president who seems obsessed with making a kingly fortune. Joining me now is Norm Eisen, co-founder and executive chair of the watchdog group State Democracy Defenders Fund and the Democracy Defender. You're the Democracy Defender, Norm. You're the best at it. All right. I want to read something here because I think it's really important for our viewers to get an idea of just the level of what we're talking about here on corruption. And this is about the financial disclosures that we've seen, a staggering grift on a scale that we've never seen before. You said, quote, "Make no mistake, his billions in personal profit don't come out of thin air. Every dollar extracted from these schemes comes at a cost imposed directly on the American people, whether through weaker consumer protections, trust sold to the highest bidder, or otherwise." Contextualize that for us, because when people see these stories about grift, they go, I don't know if it directly affects me, but it very much does so.
We're really seeing the corruption narrative take hold now on this administration. And that is because Donald Trump has monetized the Oval Office to the tune of over $2 billion, Luke. And my point, wearing my Democracy Defenders Action hat in that case, my point was, when you look at these enormous sums, someone has to be on the other side, and too often it's the American people losing money. Take the Donald Trump meme coin. Over $600 million into Donald Trump's pocket. But guess what? The value of that coin has cratered. It's down 95%. People have lost huge sums of money based on that. That's hurting them and benefiting him. And the same thing is true across the full range of these corrupt activities that have landed him with the same public approval rating as Nixon at the very bottom of his corruption scandals.
It's so remarkable because I think when you see these numbers that are flying around and people see $2 billion the president has enriched himself in just the last year. The vice president making millions. The first lady making millions. This is something that is not akin to what we experience in America, especially over the course of our republic here. It's something that is very much more aligned with oligarchs and sort of authoritarian countries where in order to do anything, you have to pay back a bribe to who's in charge. Can you talk about on the founding of our 250th birthday, as we approach this, the founding of our country and coming to this 250th birthday, just how uniquely un-American this is?
Well, we've never seen anything like this in the history of our country. And indeed, even if you look around the world at dictatorships and despots, you struggle to find this kind of profit-taking out of the public interest and into a president's own pockets. Take another example. Part of that windfall for the president is his crypto company, World Liberty Financial. Yeah. Well, you had an Emirati royal who made a secret investment.
And they gave him the jet.
And, well, the jet is from Qatar.
Oh, Qatar, excuse me.
But we will come to the jet.
Yeah,
that's
seriously.
bad enough, too. The UAE makes this secret investment. $500 million in World Liberty Financial. That's a Trump family business, but the cronyism doesn't stop there. To your comparison, how un-American this is, the Witkoff family, Trump's special envoy, his family is involved in this profit-taking too. So you should not have a president who's regulating, or as the case may be, failing to regulate crypto, while himself, his cronies, his families, his associates in and out of government making huge sums. That's not the American idea.
I want to switch gears here because we've been fixated in Washington about this story regarding the reflecting pool. And a lot of people at home think it's not that big a deal, but it is a very big deal because it plays into the authoritarian playbook, essentially that don't believe what your eyes see. I've been down there. I've seen the algae in there. I've seen that it was a complete debacle to try and repaint the bottom of it. The president and his people put a fence around it. And you now have a client who's a former Olympian, a gentleman by the name of David Hearn, who is actually charged because allegedly he took a piece of the bottom of the reflecting pool. Right there, we could put on the screen Thursday afternoon, U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, whose recent prosecutorial track record has been as embarrassing as it is analytical, announced that Hearn has been charged with one felony count of destruction of property in D.C. Superior Court. Well, I know you can't speak too much about this case, but on its face, it looks just as ridiculous as the ham sandwich one from earlier in the year.
We'll try the case in court, Luke. I will say Davy Hearn is innocent. These charges are outrageous. It should be alarming to every American that this kind of thing can happen. You have an administration that is trying to shift blame with a concocted narrative. Fortunately, we have a justice system where evidence matters, not these type of press conferences that we saw. And that's really all I can say about it. Just to correct one thing, even Jeanine Pirro does not say he took anything out of that reflecting pool.
Okay, that's good to hear. Well, Norm, you've had a heck of a week. You saved birthright citizenship, and you're saving a poor guy who's getting charged with trying to take that part of the reflecting pool. What a spectrum you're working on. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Have a great 4th of July weekend.